Hi everyone, I'm Kitty and I'm the user guide coordinator for Cultivate, as well as an on-site staff member at the Iowa Food Co-op. Today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of some of the material that can be found in your producer guide. We're going to be going over some suggested practices and example products for producers who are interested in making some greener swaps to their product delivery. The Iowa Food Co-op has stated that one of its goals is more sustainability in packaging, and if you're a producer who wants to bring your own work in line with that goal, but don't know where to start, this will be a relatively quick overview of materials as well as some things you can do right now to reduce your packaging and therefore your impact. Firstly, I just want to shout out board member and co-op producer Inger Lamb, who provided much of the research into materials for this presentation. Thanks, Inger! Greener swaps, an overview of materials. For many reasons, it is desirable to reduce the use of plastic and styrofoam bags, dinnerware, containers, and related products. Here is a review of the current options and the issues with an emphasis on the food service sector. That said, there are some things to bear in mind when making the leap to greener packaging options. Recycling rules and opportunities are constantly changing, and consumers need to be educated about proper disposal of all of these products. Beware the statement, fully compostable, at a commercial composting facility. These facilities are not common. These materials will take many, many months to decompose in a typical home composting system and are not welcome in municipal yard waste bags or recycling bins. If a plant-based plastic is likely to end up being put in a recycling bin by the consumer, it is better to use a petroleum-based product for the sale and educate consumers on appropriate recycling practices, and the same thing goes for wood and bar gas products. If they are going to be put in yard waste bags, better to use something a consumer understands how to dispose of. Many of these products are essentially single-use. This is not ideal, but at least they are made from sustainable resources, not petroleum. On a small scale, some of the tableware can be washed and reused, and even paper containers are not always recyclable. If they are contaminated with food or grease or have a waxy coating, they should not be put in the recycling bin. So what this means is that these are some materials that you can use now, some steps you can take now, but the important thing is that these items will not be useful in all applications across all of our producers in all areas. It is imperative that you do your research before you make any of these material swaps to see if they meet your goals in particular or can meet those goals in the area where you live. PLA, polylactic acid plastic. This is an option some of you have probably already seen, as there's a variety of grocery stores in the area that now use these for their produce bags, or some of you might use them for holding kitchen scraps for compost, such as through the composting program at the Iowa Food Co-op. Very similar to petroleum-based plastic products, though not identical. They can be more brittle and are not suitable for hot items. Those of us who've used it know that they don't do super well with very, very wet items either. Made from cornstarch, sugarcane, or tapioca root, plant product goes through a wet milling to extract sugars, which are fermented into lactic acids, then polymerized into plastic resins, which I personally think is pretty neat. It does not release toxic fumes when processed, in contrast with traditional petroleum-based plastics, and can, as in it's technically possible, to be biodegraded into compost, but not typically via backyard-style composting. It needs higher temperatures and controlled conditions, and in a typical landfill does not behave differently than a petroleum-based plastic, meaning it sticks around for a really long time. It can be recycled directly, if not composted first, and if accepted by local authorities. Check local ordinances for guidelines. For example, your area may not have the required type of composting or recycling facility, and treat this product as landfill material. Here's an example from a vendor called ProGreen. As I said, these green bags might now be pretty familiar depending on where you shop or if you use them for compost. Bagasse. This is made from sugarcane, sorghum, or agave fibers, so things that we make sugar out of, after sugar is extracted for other uses. This means it's a byproduct of an existing bio-based industry. So essentially, it's garbage that we can repurpose. It can be molded into paper-like products versus PLA, which is used to substitute for plastic-like products. It is a preferable source versus trees for paper pulp. It is sometimes combined with wheat straw, which is something that might need to be considered, depending on what you're doing with it. It is made from renewable resources, in contrast to petroleum-based plastics. The producers claim that less energy is used to produce it than it takes to produce PLA, even. Products are grease and cut resistant, microwavable, freezable, can withstand 200 degrees Fahrenheit, so they're very useful for things like prepared food applications or other things that might be hot or a person might want to microwave or a container that you might want to use utensils in. It biodegrades much faster than PLA products and can be composted at home. If sent to a recycling center, unfortunately, the waste handler may landfill the entire contaminated load, so it's important that it does not wind up in the compost. So that's where that consumer education would come in. Some communities accept bagasse products in backyard compost, but again, you want to check your local ordinances. It still takes a longer time than standard paper products, faster if shredded or chipped. Here's an example of some bagasse takeaway containers available via Eco Products, and you can see right here on the slide that it is made from sugarcane. Wood. This one is probably most useful for people who package prepared foods, as most wood products are things like cutlery, coffee stirrers, etc. These are usually made from materials like birch or bamboo, palm leaves, or pine. I've seen some really, really cool disposable sort of partyware, what you would use to substitute paper plates, made out of palm leaves that I think are pretty neat. These are considered single-use at the vendor level. At the user level, it can be reused, but you as a producer can't use these items more than once, just because they can't really be cleaned. They can be composted in the same manner as surplus wood. It takes a while, but it's doable, and you could probably do it in the backyard. Here's an example of disposable tableware from EcoGecko, which are made from responsibly harvested wood products. You can see that these, again, would be ideal for someone who's making prepackaged foods, things like soup, salads, that you would want to include cutlery with, rather than relying on the user, or if the user doesn't want to carry around their own reusable cutlery kits. Paper. Paper products are popular, versatile, and widely available for a range of applications. Many products are available from all or partially recycled paper, especially nowadays, including takeout-style boxes and clamshells suitable for food sales. In general, these are recyclable, but if heavily contaminated with food, they should not be put in a recycling collection bin or yard waste bag. Food-contaminated paper products can be put in your home composting system. Some products may be coated with waxes and other materials that slow decomposition. In general, if you can scratch off a waxy layer, it's not compostable. A shiny surface is okay. And here's an example of some recycled paper packaging from Good Start Packaging. They look like they would be useful for things like prepared foods and maybe bakery items. Glass. Good old-fashioned glass doesn't require much of an introduction. It's very reusable and very recyclable. Several IFC producers use glass containers that are returned to IFC for reuse by the producer. For example, agricultured kombucha, which if you've ever bought, you know requires a bottle deposit. And then each time you return to the IFC, you will turn in that bottle and swap it out for a new one. That producer then collects those bottles from the IFC, brings them home, sterilizes them, and uses them to make a new round of kombucha. And I think Meadow Blazing Star Honey also has a jar take-back program. Can't overhaul your packing supplies? Tips and tricks for greener packaging you can do right now. That materials information is a lot to take in. It's very complicated. There are a lot of rules. There are a lot of use limitations. There's a lot to take in, and it's understandable if you're not yet in a place where you can or even want to overhaul your packaging supplies. That's okay. There are a few things you can do right now, starting with your next delivery cycle, to help reduce or improve packaging on your co-op orders. First and foremost, consider consolidation. The best change you might be able to make is reducing the amount of packaging that you use per consumer order. This can be done in a few ways. Offer incremental quantities using the variety function in the software. For example, small pickling cucumbers could be sold in packages of 3, 6, 9, 12, etc. This makes sense as most people are buying multiple pickling cucumbers at a time to do either a single pickling project or a season's worth of canning. Being proactive about consolidating products for the same customer. For example, a consumer might order 4 bulbs of garlic, and the way our system's set up, they would buy them 4 separate bulbs of garlic. It would be proactive to consolidate these 4 items into one bag. In this case, with our software, it is best to put all 4 QR codes on the outside of the bag so they can be individually scanned. Note, as an on-sign staff member of the co-op, I've noticed that some consumers will leave a note in the shopper notes section requesting consolidation, which is why it's so important to make sure that you're checking those shopper notes when you prep deliveries. Consider using paper. Paper is not useful for all applications. For instance, greens, which may be very damp, or for most things that might be stored in a fridge, but consider using paper bags for non-refrigerated items. Or consider no packaging at all. Consider sticking the QR code directly to the product, such as with rind vegetables, such as pumpkins, watermelon, etc. So anything where the sticker will be touching a part of the product that the consumer will not eat, consider sticking the QR code right on it. Another thing that you can do with our software is that you can reduce the number of labels you use. If your item has a UPC code that meets the software requirements, which is a unique UPC for each variety offered, for instance, with ice cream, vanilla would have its own UPC, chocolate would have its own UPC, strawberry would have its own UPC. That is actually eligible for compatible with our software, that you can put that right into the software when you add that item to your catalog, or you can update your catalog with that information, and then you never have to print one of those QR code labels ever again. Thanks everybody for coming. Special thanks to board member Inger Lamb for doing the initials materials research. A copy of this information is available in the producer handbook, available on the website. And you will be able to check out the other videos in this ongoing series on the Iowa Food Co-op YouTube channel. Thank you.